My name is Caleb. Thanks so much for joining me for this video. We're going to talk about the a7 II and the a6400 in particular. I have a bit of a twist at the end of the video, so stay till the end. You won't want to miss that. The reason why I'm kind of comparing these specific two is I've owned both of them. I've also owned a 61 and 6300, but I still own the 6400. Also because if you're gonna get it used, like this a7 II or the 6400, they're both pretty much priced the same. And then I'm also talking from personal experience, professional experience. So I'm not just talking willy-nilly. And when I actually first upgraded, it was from the 6300 to the 7 II, and it felt like a downgrade. So definitely versus the 6400, it's gonna feel like even more of a downgrade. So we're gonna get into image quality. The image quality is better for the a7 II. So if you are convinced you're only gonna do still life and product photography, a7 II is better. But if you aren't sure, or you know for a fact you're gonna do some portraits in there, some video work, you're definitely gonna wanna go for the crop sensor. So if you were to pixel peep, you're gonna find the images just look cleaner on the a7 II. When the image is viewed as presented, it looks better it looks about the same, not better, sorry. It looks about the same on the a6400 versus the a7 II. But pixel peeping, you're gonna find that you could almost see the pixels on the crop sensor. You're also gonna find that in the shadows especially, you're seeing more artifacting on the crop sensor. If you use the same lens on the a7 II and the a6400, you're gonna find that the images look a little bit sharper on the a7 II. But it's such a marginal win that it really doesn't outweigh all the other things we're gonna get into. The other thing would be, let's jump to dynamic range. The dynamic range on factually, scientifically on paper for the a7 II is better. You can check this on photos. I think a lot of photographers and videographers use this site. Yeah, sorry about that. Nothing I can control. I think a lot of photographers and videographers use this site, or should use this site, to learn more about their camera. Can do a whole other video on that. But if you check that out, you're gonna find the a7 II's better dynamic range and some other things. It's a little bit better than the crop sensor. Once again though, only a little bit better. It's like a difference of 11.1 to 10.8 or something. So in practice, you won't actually notice that difference. In editing, you won't notice that difference. What you would notice, however, I think, is the color science is a little bit better. I would say it's a lot better, but it's better on the a6400 because it's a newer camera, newer sensor, and it has the newer Sony color science. And in my opinion, it seems to have a better color roll-off from the highlights, which kind of gives a perceived better dynamic range almost for the crop sensor. So I really can't recommend the a7 II if you're looking more at dynamic range and just the look of your image files. And this is where the crop sensor starts to trash the a7 II autofocus. The a7 II has decent autofocus, and I say decent because when you've experienced the a6400 autofocus, even the a6300 autofocus, the a7 II feels like a huge downgrade and doesn't feel like it's on the same playing field. The a6400 has autofocus, so does the a7 II, but the a7 II isn't as quick, it doesn't find the eye as well, and it's limited. The a7 II like phase detect area is like the middle of the frame, like the middle 50%, whereas it's wider on the a6400, and then the a6400 has like an always on eye tracking autofocus, whereas the a7 II doesn't. You have to set a back button to autofocus. So it's a little bit more inconvenient. And then the always on eye autofocus of the 6400 can also be a tracking eye autofocus, because if you track someone's face, let's say in a frame, as soon as the eye becomes visible, it focuses on the eye. As soon as the eye is no longer visible, it will just focus on the face, the box, right? Which is kind of what the 6400 is doing right now. It's focusing on my face in video. So in video, the a7 II doesn't, it just focuses, so in wide mode it will just focus on whatever is closest to the camera. So if I did this with the a7 II, you're gonna find that it's focusing on my hand. But with the a6400, because it has face tracking or face autofocus for video, it actually just stays on my face even though my hand is much closer to the lens. So with the a7 II, you would find it starts to focus on my hand, but the a6400 is smarter, newer technology, so it's focusing on my face even though my hand is closer. So that kind of bleeds into the next thing. The usability and the technology is just better in the a6400 because it's newer, whereas the a7 II, because it's older, it has less technology. It's less user-friendly, to be honest. You could even, it feels as though the a6400 is more customizable too, because more of the features can be put into your functions menu. There's also like a My menu, which could be like a shortcuts to some of the more intricate things in the menu. And even the customizable buttons, you can put more things on it, as opposed to the a7 II, where they've like almost crippled what you can put on those customizable buttons. The auto viewfinder. So the auto switch between the viewfinder and the display is smarter on the a6400 than it is on the a7 II. On the a7 II, so as soon as you put something close to the viewfinder, it will switch to the viewfinder. So if you have the camera close to your body, let's say, even though you're using the display, you're gonna find it's engaging or enabling your viewfinder. But with the 6400, as long as that screen isn't all the way in, even if the camera is close to your body, it won't switch to the viewfinder. It's only when you snap the screen properly and securely in place that you're gonna find it switching to the viewfinder. So the camera is a little bit smarter. So points for the a6400 there. And then, so for video specs, as I kind of touched on before, the 6400 actually has more picture profiles. It has better video autofocus, and it has 4K. The a7 II does not have 4K. It only has like 3 picture profiles, and the video autofocus sucks, like I was discussing. It just focuses on whatever is closest to the camera. So that could be very problematic, depending on what you're taking video of. There's a lot of fireworks. I apologize, I'm not even sure why there's fireworks right now. Well, and then kind of lastly, I want to talk about the size. So the crop sensor for any camera line is smaller than the full frame. A lot of photographers, pretty much everyone is going to tell you full frame is better. And they are right for the most part, because typically it's better image quality. Usually it's better features. Things like the shutter speed is 1/4000 of a second on most crop sensor cameras, with the exception of like Fuji. But it's 1/8000 on the full frame. So in the Canon and Sony lines, it's 1/8000 for pretty much all the full frames. But on the crop sensors, it's 1/4000. So that alone sometimes is a reason to go full frame. But if you kind of listen and watch YouTubers or other photographers long enough, a lot of them have a full frame body that they use for their professional work, but they prefer to shoot with a smaller crop sensor camera usually. What that kind of tells me as a budget photographer is, if you can get just from people with experience, they seem to appreciate the smaller form factor. Whether they will recommend it professionally or not. So if you have a smaller form factor that's giving you professional results, as a budget photographer, that will make you want to go out and shoot more, because I can tell you, owning a bigger camera and a smaller camera, basically, I tend to want to shoot with the smaller camera more. Like if I'm gonna go out and shoot, I tend to want to take the smaller one out more. It's just easier to carry. It kind of inspires me more to shoot. When I owned the a7 II and a crop sensor at the same time, I felt more like grabbing the 6400, the smaller camera, partially because it was just more user friendly, better autofocus, etc., etc. So just peep that a lot of people who recommend full frame, when they are going out to shoot, they'll quicker grab their crop sensor camera that's smaller instead of their giant full frame camera. So those are like the main reasons why I think 6400 is worth getting over the a7 II. The twist I had for you in the end was, I've also been filming, and maybe some of you might have noticed the image kind of interchanging, because I filmed this video at the same time with an a7 IV, and I kind of wanted to show and see for myself too, but I kind of wanted to show that you could actually get really good results just from whatever you have. You don't really need to upgrade. Like, upgrading is great, don't get me wrong. Upgrading will improve your quality, it will improve usability, you will be able to do more, but you don't have to. That's kind of what I want to showcase by shooting the a7 IV next to the a6400, because the a64 and the a7 IV is being shot at 60p, so 60 frames per second, HD, so not even 4K, and 8-bit, and S-Log3. And these are all like blasphemous settings. People never recommend S-Log3. They always say 8-bit sucks, and they always say full frame. And yes, you may have noticed that it's been changing, but you probably couldn't tell that one has been full frame and one has been 6400. In fact, one has been the latest full frame and one has been the 6400. So yeah, that's all that I have for you for this video. Don't get the a7 II, especially if you're hybrid. Just get the 6400, you'll be happier. You will, in a sense, be more future-proof than if you get that a7 II. Guaranteed, if you get the a7 II, you're gonna be looking to upgrade when you find yourself shooting an event or something, and you realize how bad that autofocus is. You're gonna want to switch right away. So if you have any questions, leave it down in the comments below. If you have any videos that you want me to make, anything that you think I might have some knowledge to share on, leave it in the comments below. I'll be happy to make a video on that. So thanks for joining me. My name is Caleb again, and I hope to see you in the next video.